When we look around at the world today, it feels like everything is pulling us in 1,000 directions. Opportunities are endless. Information is infinite. Everyone seems to be chasing the next big thing, the next opportunity, the next shiny object. And while the pursuit of growth is good, what's dangerous is when we chase more before we've even mastered less. Think about it. We live in a culture that celebrates business. People brag about how many projects they're working on, how many side hustles they're building, how many things they can juggle at once. But being busy is not the same as being effective. Motion is not the same as progress. And chasing more is not the same as building mastery. The truth is, before we earn the right to take on more, we have to first prove that we can handle less. Before we pile complexity onto our lives, we must first master clarity. Clarity before complexity. That is the law of growth. That is the foundation of sustainable success. Let me ask you something. If you can't carry one glass of water without spilling it, what makes you think you'll be able to carry a bucket? If you can't keep focus on one meaningful task, how will you handle 10? If you can't master a single principle, how will you apply a dozen? It's not about doing more. It's about becoming more. And becoming more doesn't start with complexity. It starts with simplicity. It starts with the basics. It starts with clarity. Clarity means you know what matters most. It means you understand the difference between what is urgent and what is important. It means you can say no to the things that look appealing, but don't align with your purpose. Clarity strips away the noise. It forces you to focus. It gives you a direction. And once you have direction, then you can handle complexity. But never before. Most people get this backwards. They chase complexity before clarity. They try to scale before they stabilize. They want to expand before they establish. And then they wonder why they feel scattered, burned out, overwhelmed, and unfulfilled. It's because they're building a skyscraper on sand. Imagine building a house. No matter how beautiful the design is, no matter how modern the architecture, if the foundation is weak, the house won't stand. Mastery of less is the foundation. Complexity is the house. Without the foundation, the house crumbles. And in life, many people are living in collapsing houses because they never mastered the foundation of clarity. So how do we move from complexity to clarity? It begins with asking simple but powerful questions. What really matters to me? What are the few things that, if I mastered them, would change everything? What are the distractions that keep me busy but not productive? Most of us are overwhelmed, not because life is truly overwhelming, but because we're trying to do everything without understanding what's essential. Complexity without clarity is chaos, and chaos leads to exhaustion, frustration, and mediocrity. On the other hand, clarity creates focus. And focus is a superpower. When you focus on less, you give yourself the opportunity to go deep. You begin to see nuances you never saw before. You start to notice the small improvements that compound over time. You develop a sense of mastery that complexity never allows. Think of the greatest athletes, the greatest artists, the greatest leaders. None of them mastered everything at once. They started with clarity on a few things. They built habits, discipline, and skills one step at a time. They mastered less before they earned the right to chase more. A world-class pianist doesn't start by playing symphonies. They start by mastering scales. A surgeon doesn't start by performing complex surgeries. They start by mastering the fundamentals of anatomy and practice. A great leader doesn't start by managing hundreds of people. They start by leading themselves with clarity and discipline. Clarity before complexity is the difference between scattered energy and powerful energy. It's the difference between running in circles and moving forward. It's the difference between being busy and being impactful. But here's the challenge: clarity takes courage. It's easy to chase more. It looks impressive. It feeds the ego. When you say yes to everything, you feel important. You look busy. People think you're successful. But clarity forces you to say no. It forces you to cut out the noise. It forces you to choose. And choosing is hard because it means giving up other options. But here's the paradox. The more options you try to hold on to, the less progress you actually make. By trying to do everything, you end up doing nothing with excellence. But by committing to a few, you create mastery. And mastery creates momentum. And momentum allows you to handle more when the time is right. We need to stop glorifying complexity. Complexity isn't impressive. Anyone can be complex. True mastery is simplicity. True genius is clarity. The person who can explain the most complicated idea in simple terms is the one who truly understands it. The person who can reduce chaos into order is the one who has mastered it. The person who can focus on less and make it excellent is the one who is prepared for more. When you look back on your life, the moments that shaped you most weren't the times when you were juggling everything. They were the times when you were deeply focused, committed, and clear about what mattered. It might have been learning a skill, building a relationship, or committing to a discipline. It wasn't about chasing more. It was about mastering less. And this is not just about work or success. This is about life. Relationships thrive not when we give a little to everyone, but when we give a lot to the few who matter most. Health improves not when we chase every new trend, But when we commit to mastering the fundamental sleep nutrition movement, fulfillment doesn't come from doing more things, but from doing fewer things with more meaning. Clarity simplifies, complexity distracts. The more you master clarity, the more equipped you are to handle the complexity that inevitably comes with growth. It's like building muscle. You don't start with the heaviest weight. You start with what you can handle. You master the form. You build strength gradually. And only when you've mastered less do you move on to more. If you skip that process, you don't grow stronger. You just get injured. And in life, many people are walking around injured not because they took on too little, but because they took on too much too soon without clarity. So the call is simple: don't chase more until you master less. Focus on the fundamentals, build the foundation. Clarify what matters most. Strip away the noise. Get clear before you get complex. Because here's the truth: more is coming. Complexity will find you. Opportunities will present themselves. Growth will demand it. But if you've built clarity, you'll be ready. If you've mastered less, you'll be able to handle more. And when that happens, you won't just be chasing more, you'll be leading more, sustaining more, and thriving in more. We live in a world obsessed with more. More knowledge, more skills, more projects, more opportunities, more achievements. Everywhere we turn, we are told to diversify, to spread our wings, to take on as much as we can. It sounds inspiring on the surface, but in practice, it creates a dangerous trap. Because while we're busy chasing breadth, we often forget the true power lies in depth. Depth beats breadth. Always, it's tempting to believe that doing more makes us more valuable, that the more hats we wear, the more impressive we look, that the more things we can juggle, the more capable we appear. But life doesn't reward those who dabble in everything. Life rewards those who master something. The world doesn't admire people who skim the surface. It follows those who dive deep. Think about water. A puddle is wide but shallow. You can step into it without effort, but it evaporates quickly and holds no power. A well, on the other hand, is narrow but deep. It may not cover much surface area, but its depth provides life, nourishment, and sustainability. Most people are living like puddles, spread wide and shallow. But those who choose depth become like wells. They carry real strength. They offer real value. They become indispensable. The danger of breadth is that it creates the illusion of progress. We feel productive because we're busy. We feel successful because we're involved in many things. But business is not the same as effectiveness. Being in motion is not the same as moving forward. And the truth is, spreading ourselves too thin robs us of the chance to develop mastery. Depth requires patience. Depth requires repetition. Depth requires focus. And in a culture that celebrates instant gratification and multitasking, depth feels boring. We get restless repeating the same thing, practicing the same habit, refining the same skill. But mastery lives in repetition. Excellence is born in depth. It is not about how much we do, but how deeply we do it. History is full of examples that prove this. The greatest musicians didn't learn to play every instrument in the orchestra. They mastered one. The greatest athletes didn't try to excel at every sport. They dedicated themselves to one. The greatest leaders didn't try to solve every problem at once. They went deep into a mission, a cause, a purpose, and gave it everything. Their depth is what made them remarkable. Yet too often, we try to be everything at once. We want to be the entrepreneur, the innovator, the leader, the influencer, the creator, all at the same time. And instead of becoming excellent at one, we end up average at many. Instead of creating mastery, we create mediocrity. Instead of building depth, we build distraction. Here's the truth: the world doesn't need more mediocrity. It needs more mastery. It doesn't need people who can do a little bit of everything. It needs people who are deeply excellent at something. Because when you go deep, you create value that breadth can never achieve. Depth makes you irreplaceable. Depth makes you credible. Depth makes you trusted, but depth requires sacrifice. To go deep in one thing, you must say no to many others. To master your craft, you must resist the temptation to dabble. To become excellent, you must endure the boredom of repetition and the discipline of focus. That's hard, and that's why most people don't do it. They prefer to spread wide because it feels easier. But easy never created extraordinary. Depth is what transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary impact. Think of a tree. The taller it grows, the deeper its roots must go. Without roots, the tree cannot withstand the storms. Without depth, it collapses. Many people want the height of success but neglect the depth of foundation. They want recognition without mastery, growth without grounding, more without less. And when the storms come, and they always come, they fall. Depth is not glamorous in the beginning. It's not impressive to practice the same scale on the piano over and over. It's not exciting to study the fundamentals of a discipline repeatedly. It's not fun to stick to the basics of health or leadership or relationships. But those who commit to depth become the ones who shine when it matters most. Because when the moment of testing comes, the shallow break, but the deep endure. There is also fulfillment in depth that breadth can never provide. Skimming across many things leaves us restless. We never feel satisfied because we never truly master anything. But when you commit to depth, When you immerse yourself in something fully, you experience the joy of growth, the pride of mastery, the meaning of impact. Fulfillment is not found in doing everything. It's found in doing something deeply well. We admire people who stand out in life, but standing out doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing one thing exceptionally well. When someone speaks with clarity, when someone leads with confidence, when someone performs with excellence, it is not because they dabbled in many things. It's because they went deep into one. Their mastery makes them magnetic. And here's the irony: when you go deep, you eventually create breadth. Depth builds a foundation that allows you to expand later. Master one thing, and it becomes the doorway to many things. A musician who masters one instrument can more easily learn another. An athlete who masters one sport builds the discipline to transfer into others. A leader who masters clarity of vision can lead in many contexts. Depth first, breadth later. That's the natural order. But when we reverse it, when we chase breadth before depth, we dilute our growth. We may start many things, but we finish few. We may know a little about everything, but we know enough about nothing to make a lasting difference. We remain puddles when we could have been wells. Depth is the long game. It doesn't give immediate rewards. It doesn't always look impressive in the short term. But over time, depth compounds. Small improvements layered over years create expertise. Repetition builds instinct. Focus sharpens talent. What feels slow today becomes extraordinary tomorrow. If you've ever watched a master at work, you've witnessed the beauty of depth. A chef who creates magic from simple ingredients. A teacher who can explain the most difficult concept in the simplest way. A craftsman whose hands move with precision that only decades of practice could build. Depth is invisible until it's revealed in moments like these. And when it is revealed, it's unforgettable. So the challenge is this: stop chasing breadth for the sake of appearances. Stop scattering your energy across too many things. Choose depth. Go narrow. Commit to mastering something before you move on to the next. Because when you do, you don't just become skilled, you become valuable. You don't just grow, you endure. You don't just succeed, you make an impact. Life is short and time is limited. You cannot do everything. But you can do something with such depth and such excellence that it changes everything. Don't spread yourself so thin that you disappear. Go deep enough that you leave a mark. We live in a time where progress has become a performance. We post about how busy we are. We celebrate our packed schedules. We track, measure, and announce every little milestone as if it proves that we are moving forward. But there's a danger in this, because not everything that looks like progress actually is. In fact, one of the greatest traps we fall into is mistaking movement for growth. We confuse business with effectiveness. We get lost in the illusion of progress. Think about a hamster wheel. To the hamster, it feels like running. The legs are moving, the body is sweating, the pace is fast. But no matter how fast it runs, it doesn't move forward even an inch. The effort is real, the motion is real, but the progress is an illusion. How many of us live our lives the same way? We fill our calendars with meetings, we say yes to every request, we chase every new opportunity, and we mistake all of this activity for forward momentum. But when we stop and reflect, we realize we are in the exact same place we started, just more exhausted. The illusion of progress is seductive. It feels good to be busy. It feels good to check things off a list, to respond quickly to emails, to attend every meeting, to say yes to everything. We feel needed, important, productive. But ask yourself, are these actions actually moving you closer to your purpose, your vision, your values? Or are they simply keeping you occupied? Because there is a difference between activity and achievement. There is a difference between being busy and being effective. There is a difference between progress that is real and progress that is an illusion. We see this everywhere. A company adds more features to its product, but never improves the user's experience. A student takes more classes, but never truly learns anything deeply. A leader attends every event, but never invests in building trust with their people. On the surface, it all looks like progress. But peel back the layers and it's just motion, no movement. Why do we fall into this trap? Because illusions are easier than reality. Real progress is slow. Real progress requires patience. Real progress means saying no to distractions and focusing on what matters most. But illusions are quick. Illusions give instant gratification. Illusions make us feel good without demanding much discipline. Checking email feels like progress, but often it's just distraction. Attending 10 meetings feels like progress, but often it's just noise. Posting updates about how busy you are feels like progress, but it rarely changes anything. The truth is, illusions of progress keep us comfortable. They keep us busy enough to avoid the hard questions. Am I actually growing? Am I actually moving closer to the life I want? Am I actually doing the work that matters? Because if the answer is no, then all the business in the world doesn't matter. If the answer is no, then all the motion is meaningless. The illusion of progress is dangerous because it steals our most valuable resource, time. Time spent in illusions cannot be reclaimed. And unlike money, once time is gone, it's gone forever. That's why the cost of living in the illusion of progress is not just wasted energy, it's wasted life. But here's the good news: once we recognize the illusion, we can break free from it. It begins by shifting our focus from activity to impact, from how much we are doing to why we are doing it, from checking boxes to creating change. The question is not, am I busy? The question is, am I effective? The question is not, am I moving fast? The question is, am I moving forward? True progress is measured not by how much we do, but by the difference our actions make. If you're chasing 100 things, but none of them truly matter, you're not progressing. If you're constantly working, but never closer to your vision, you're not progressing. If you're exhausted but unfulfilled, you're not progressing. That's the illusion at work. Real progress often looks smaller from the outside but feels deeper from the inside. It's the quiet discipline of practicing a skill every day. It's the unseen effort of building trust with people over years. It's the patient work of refining an idea, clarifying a vision, strengthening a habit. These don't always look glamorous. They don't give instant validation. But they build a foundation for lasting impact. Consider a seed planted in the ground. For months you see nothing. You water it, you nurture it, you wait. From the outside it looks like nothing is happening. But beneath the soil, roots are growing, strength is building, life is forming. Then one day it breaks through the ground. That is progress. Real progress is often invisible until suddenly it isn't. But if you give up too soon, if you trade patience for the illusion of speed, you kill the growth before it has a chance to appear. We have to ask ourselves, are we building roots or are we running in circles on a hamster wheel? Roots don't show up on social media. Roots don't get instant applause. But roots are what make us unshakable. Motion on a wheel gets attention, but it doesn't get you anywhere. When we chase the illusion of progress, we burn out. We drain ourselves doing more and more without ever feeling fulfilled. But when we pursue true progress, we may do less, but we feel alive. We may move slower, but we move forward. We may not look as busy, but we are more effective. The illusion of progress also traps organizations. Companies sometimes celebrate how many projects they launched, how many meetings they held, how many reports they produced. But activity does not equal impact. What matters is whether those projects created value, whether those meetings built alignment, whether those reports drove decisions. Otherwise, it's all just noise disguised as progress. The same is true in our personal lives. We can go to the gym every day, but never improve our health if we're not intentional. We can read dozens of books, but never grow wiser if we don't reflect. We can have thousands of contacts, but never experience true connection if we don't invest in relationships. Progress is not in the quantity of what we do, it's in the quality of how and why we do it. Breaking free from the illusion means choosing clarity over complexity. It means stripping away the noise and focusing on what truly matters. It means measuring progress not by how much we do, but by how much we grow. It means asking, am I closer to my purpose today than I was yesterday? Did my actions move me toward the future I want to build? Did I make an impact that lasts? Real progress is not glamorous. It is not fast. It is not loud. It is quiet, steady, and intentional. It doesn't feed the ego, but it strengthens the soul. It doesn't demand applause, but it creates results that speak for themselves. And here's the most powerful truth. When we stop chasing the illusion of progress, we actually start making real progress. When we stop trying to look busy, we start becoming effective. When we stop chasing every opportunity, we start pursuing the right opportunities. When we stop measuring by quantity, we start measuring by impact. The world doesn't need more people running on hamster wheels. It needs more people planting roots. It doesn't need more noise. It needs more clarity. It doesn't need more motion. It needs more movement. So the challenge is simple. Don't settle for the illusion. Don't confuse business with growth. Don't mistake motion for meaning. Measure your life not by how much you do, but by how much you become. Because in the end, the illusion fades. Only real progress remains. We all want momentum in life. We want to feel like we're moving forward, that we're growing, that we're making progress. We want the sense that tomorrow will be better because of what we do today. But momentum doesn't come from luck. It doesn't come from shortcuts. It doesn't come from doing a lot of things quickly. Momentum comes from mastery. And mastery is built slowly, intentionally, and deliberately. Think about a snowball rolling down a hill. At the top, it's small, fragile, easy to stop. But as it rolls, as it gathers more snow, as it gains speed, it becomes unstoppable. That's momentum. But the snowball doesn't become unstoppable because it rushed down the hill. It becomes unstoppable because it built consistency, it built weight, it built strength. That's what mastery does for us. It gives us the weight, the strength, and the force to create unstoppable momentum in our lives. The problem is, most people want the momentum without the mastery. They want the results without the repetition. They want the recognition without the discipline. But life doesn't work that way. Momentum is not magic. Momentum is earned. And it is earned through mastery. Mastery is when you take something simple and commit to it until it becomes second nature. It's when you refine a skill, a habit, a discipline so deeply that it no longer requires effort to sustain it. At first, it feels awkward. At first, you're learning the basics. But with time, with patience, with commitment, What was once hard becomes natural. What was once deliberate becomes automatic. And when it becomes automatic, it frees you to build on it. That's where momentum begins. Most people underestimate the power of small mastery. They think mastery means perfection. They think mastery is reserved for experts, for geniuses, for the elite. But mastery is simply about progress so consistent that it compounds over time. It's the daily practice, the daily discipline, the daily choice to keep going when others quit. Mastery is not a destination, it's a process. And when you embrace that process, momentum becomes inevitable. Consider an athlete training for competition. At the beginning, they struggle with form. They stumble, they fail, they get frustrated. But they keep practicing. Day after day, they refine their movements. What was once awkward becomes smooth. What was once tiring becomes natural. And then, without realizing it, they've built mastery. And that mastery creates momentum. Suddenly, they're not thinking about every little movement. They're flowing. And because they're flowing, they can push further, faster, harder than before. That is the power of mastery. Momentum doesn't come from doing everything at once. It comes from doing one thing so well that it creates energy, confidence, and strength to take on more. It's like pushing a car. At first, it takes every ounce of energy to get it to move even an inch. But once it starts rolling, once you overcome the initial resistance, momentum takes over. What was once hard becomes easier. What once required maximum effort now requires less. That's mastery. It's the initial push that unlocks the rolling force of momentum. The reason so many people feel stuck is because they never commit to mastery. They jump from one thing to another, always chasing the next new idea, the next new opportunity. And because they never stay long enough to master anything, they never build momentum. They're always starting over. Always pushing the car from the very beginning. Always running out of energy before they get anywhere. They live in cycles of exhaustion instead of momentum. But those who commit to mastery experience the opposite. They stick with it long enough to get through the hard part, long enough to build confidence, long enough to reach that point where things click. And once it clicks, momentum carries them further than they imagined. They no longer feel like they're starting over every day. They feel like they're building on yesterday's effort. That compounding effect is what mastery produces. Momentum is powerful because it gives you confidence. It proves to you that your efforts matter. It shows you that progress is possible. And confidence creates courage. Once you have momentum, you're willing to take bigger risks, to step into bigger challenges, to push yourself further. But without mastery, there is no momentum. And without momentum, there is no confidence. And without confidence, there is no courage. Everything begins with mastery. Think about someone learning a language. At first, they struggle with simple words. They mispronounce, they forget, they feel embarrassed. But as they practice, as they commit, they start to recognize patterns. The words come easier, they can form sentences. They can hold conversations. Suddenly they feel confident. And that confidence gives them the courage to travel, to meet people, to open doors they never thought possible. But none of that happens without the early stage of mastery, the awkward, slow, deliberate stage. Momentum only comes because they chose to master the basics. Mastery builds momentum not just in skills, but in life. A person who masters the discipline of waking up early gains momentum in productivity. A person who masters the discipline of listening deeply gains momentum in relationships. A person who masters the discipline of saving consistently gains momentum and financial freedom. It's never the big flashy actions that create lasting momentum. It's the small disciplines mastered daily. The beauty of momentum is that once it's built, it carries you further than you thought you could go. It creates opportunities you didn't plan for. It opens doors you didn't even see before. But it only shows up for those who put in the work of mastery. And that's why patience is so important. Momentum is not built in a day. It's built day by day. It's built when no one is watching, when the results aren't obvious, when it feels like nothing is happening. That's when mastery is forged. And that's when momentum is quietly gathering its power. One of the greatest mistakes we make is quitting too soon. We expect momentum without giving mastery enough time. We want the snowball effect, but we don't stay long enough to roll the snowball. And so we start over again and again, never realizing that if we had stayed just a little longer, pushed just a little further, we would have crossed the tipping point where mastery turns into momentum. Momentum makes hard things easier, but only after you've endured the hard part. Momentum makes you faster, but only after you've been patient enough to go slow. Momentum makes you stronger, but only after you've done the reps when no one was applauding. Mastery always comes first, momentum always comes after. So the invitation is simply don't chase momentum, chase mastery. Don't look for shortcuts, look for disciplines. Don't focus on doing everything, focus on doing one thing well. Because when you do, momentum will take care of itself. And once you have momentum, you become unstoppable. The snowball grows, the car rolls, the skill flows, the confidence builds, the courage rises, and suddenly you find yourself not just moving forward, but being propelled forward by the force of momentum you built through mastery. That's the secret. That's the path. Mastery builds momentum. Always, everywhere we look, People are chasing fulfillment. We want to feel alive. We want to feel that what we're doing matters. We want to know that our lives are not just full of activity, but full of meaning. And yet, despite having more opportunities, more connections, and more choices than ever before, so many of us feel unfulfilled. Why is that? It's because fulfillment doesn't come from doing more. Fulfillment comes from focus. We confuse success with fulfillment. We think if we achieve enough, earn enough, or collect enough, we'll finally feel satisfied. And for a brief moment, maybe we do. We reach a goal, we get the promotion, we buy the thing we've been chasing. And yet after the excitement fades, there's still an emptiness inside. That's because success is about achievement, but fulfillment is about alignment. Success comes from reaching goals. Fulfillment comes from living in focus with what truly matters. Think about the last time you were completely absorbed in something meaningful. Time seemed to disappear. You weren't checking your phone every 5 minutes. You weren't distracted by 100 other things. You were fully present, fully engaged, fully alive. That's what focus does. It pulls us into the moment. It strips away the noise. It reminds us of what's essential. And in that space, fulfillment is born. The opposite is also true. When our attention is scattered, when our energy is divided, when we try to do everything at once, we feel drained, we feel frustrated, we feel like we're everywhere but going nowhere. And no matter how much we accomplish, we don't feel fulfilled. Because fulfillment requires depth. It requires focus. It requires us to say no to the many so we can say yes to the few that matter most. The challenge is that focus is hard in today's world. Distractions are everywhere. Our phones buzz with notifications. Our calendars overflow with obligations. Our minds are constantly pulled in 100 directions. And the more distracted we become, the more unfulfilled we feel. Not because life is empty, but because our focus is empty. We are spread too thin to experience meaning in anything. But when we choose focus, something powerful happens. When we decide to pour ourselves into fewer things, those things begin to come alive. Relationships deepen. Work becomes meaningful. Passions grow. Life slows down in the best possible way. Focus creates fulfillment because it forces us to choose, and choosing brings clarity, and clarity brings purpose. Fulfillment and focus is not about having less ambition. It's not about settling for less. It's about aligning our energy with what matters most. It's about trading what is shallow for what is meaningful. It's about saying, I will not give a little of myself to everything. I will give a lot of myself to the things that truly count. Consider relationships. You can have hundreds of acquaintances, thousands of followers, endless connections. But none of that will give you the fulfillment that comes from a few deep, intentional relationships. Fulfillment doesn't come from the number of people who know your name. It comes from the small circle of people who know your heart. And that only happens when you focus, when you take time to listen, to invest, to show up, to be present. The same is true in work. You can chase a dozen different projects, spread yourself across endless tasks, and never feel satisfied. Or you can focus on the work that lights you up, the work that aligns with your values, the work that challenges you to grow. That's where fulfillment lies. Not in doing everything, but in doing the right things. Fulfillment and focus also requires courage, because when you focus, you have to say no. You have to disappoint people. You have to turn down opportunities. You have to resist the fear of missing out, and that's hard. But the truth is, when you say yes to everything, you're really saying no to the things that matter most. Focus is not about limitation. It's about liberation. It frees you from the noise so you can fully embrace what's meaningful. Fulfillment is not found in scattered attention. It's found in concentrated energy. It's not found in the rush to do more. It's found in the discipline to do less, but better. It's not found in having it all. It's found in focusing on what makes life worth living. The irony is, when we focus, we actually gain more. When we focus on fewer relationships, we gain deeper connection. When we focus on fewer projects, we gain greater impact. When we focus on fewer goals, we gain more progress. Fulfillment multiplies when focus sharpens. Think of a magnifying glass. On its own, it simply makes things appear bigger. But when it concentrates sunlight, it has the power to start a fire. Focus is the magnifying glass of life. Scattered light warms nothing. Concentrated light ignites passion, purpose, and fulfillment. The question is not how much light we have, but how focused it is. So many people spend their lives chasing more, only to feel emptier. They run faster, they achieve more, they acquire more, but they never feel the satisfaction they thought would come, because fulfillment was never about more, it was about focus. And until we learn to direct our attention to what matters most, we will always be restless, always searching, always hungry. Fulfillment and focus asks us to slow down, to pause, to ask what truly matters. What do I want my life to stand for? Who are the people I want to give my best to? What is the work that gives me meaning? What is the difference I want to make? These questions cut through the noise. They strip away the illusions. They bring us back to what's essential. And when we live from that place, we find fulfillment. This doesn't mean life will be easy. Focus is not about avoiding hard things. It's about choosing the hard things that matter. It's about pouring your energy into challenges that shape you, relationships that sustain you, work that inspires you. Fulfillment isn't about escaping struggle, it's about finding meaning in it. And focus gives us the clarity to choose struggles worth facing. At the end of our lives, we won't remember the endless list of tasks we completed. We won't measure our worth by how many things we crammed into our schedules. We will remember the moments of focus, the relationships we invested in, the work we poured ourselves into, the causes we gave our hearts to. Those will be the moments of fulfillment. Fulfillment doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. It happens when we choose to focus, when we direct our energy toward what matters most, when we stop scattering ourselves across everything and start giving ourselves fully to something. It's not about having more. It's about living with intention. It's about being present. It's about being focused. So the challenge is simple. Stop chasing more in hopes of feeling fulfilled. Start focusing on less so you can actually feel alive. Stop scattering your energy across the noise. Start investing deeply in what matters. Because in the end, fulfillment is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things with focus, with intention, with heart. And when you live with that kind of focus, you discover something extraordinary. Life doesn't just become busier, it becomes richer. It doesn't just become faster, it becomes deeper. It doesn't just look full. It feels full. That's the power of fulfillment and focus. That's what makes life worth living.